Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dan, and this is your Daily Prep. Guys, today I'm joined by Justin from Agriscaping. Just wanted to do a quick little interview for you guys. Justin has been doing some really cool stuff. You guys have heard me mention Agriscaping a couple times in videos and emails. But essentially, just wanted to get him on real fast to tell you a little bit about the work that he's doing there and how you guys can benefit from what it is that they're doing. So, Justin, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So I just kind of jump into the very beginning. How is it that Agriscaping began? I know that that you and your business partners have been involved with different things related to landscaping for quite some time, but I'm not sure the story, the real official story. So how did it all get going?
The official story. Okay, so I mean, my mom would say I've been doing this since I was about 3 years old, but that's not really accurate in terms of agriscaping. I mean, the real agriscaping shifted about 9/11. Actually, literally the day of 9/11 in 2001, I literally signed on my very first house, and everything felt really unsafe at that point in time. And I just bought this house in a really strict HOA environment, very small yard, and I was determined to grow my own food, whether they liked it or not. And but then I also realized it's like I didn't need to be against my HOA and just like spite their face, kind of thing. I could find a way to just integrate it into my landscape so they didn't even know it was there. And so that's what I did. I just started, moving stuff and just planting my watermelons right in my front yard, and I just thought no one even knew that I was growing food. I mean, I hid it so well in plain sight until the neighborhood girl, I was looking out my little window. Neighbor girl, she goes walking over to my watermelon patch and she picks that watermelon up and she just starts running down the street with it. And so I go chasing her down. I was like, hey, all you have to do is ask. It's
like she stole a watermelon from
She
your patch.
stole my watermelon. She literally just took it and went running down the street. But see, when that happened, I realized that, number one, kids are interested in this.
Yeah.
Number two, the neighbors did know I was growing food and I never got in trouble for it, because it was integrated in that way. And number three, they haven't the slightest idea how to tell a ripe watermelon. Because I was like,
pick something that's ripe.
It's like, look, you just gotta wait. This is the wrong time. I cut it open for her. I said, look, it's just not gonna taste good. So all you have to do is ask. So there was this whole world of lack of education, lack of understanding, and that I just started kind of taking it from there and just as a little hobby, just teaching people here and there. And so I started getting invited to nurseries, and they were, having me teach here and there, and started this little side business that we called Agriscaping, just to help people do that, and it kind of kept growing, and my classes were always packed at the local nurseries to learn how to do elegant edible landscaping, and so it just kind of took some movements and some forms, and then we went to Seed Spot at one point to kind of incubate the company and see what kind of potential was there, and so we got a lot of help to see the potential for it, and that's just middle of 2014, we actually formed an organization for it and started growing nationally. So
very cool. So that's just been here officially like 2 years then, coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, prior to that, we were doing a lot of landscaping, like installing stuff for people and stuff like that, but we didn't have the whole model of integrating into local food economies. None of that was all worked into it. We kind of worked that in over time, playing and toying with it, but then dialed it in.
Sure. So, and you mentioned a second ago, you were talking about the first house that you closed on. You guys are in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so was that house in Arizona as well?
Yes, it was in Gilbert, Arizona, not too far from where I live right now.
So that in and of itself, obviously, not that it makes tons and tons of difference, but obviously Arizona is not the most forgiving climate to grow in. It's a little bit more brittle. So the fact that you're able to do that, I think is pretty impressive. So to keep it, I guess, looking nice enough that an HOA would be cool with it, because we know that there's definitely standards in HOAs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to look really, really good.
Yeah. So you mentioned you kind of just touched a second ago. You touched on the business model, and I wanted to ask, what is it that now you guys have Agriscaping? What are your guys' core like products and core projects that you guys are working on with Agriscaping?
Well, it's really to educate, empower, and support. I mean, that's really the three main facets. So we're educating the public about agriscaping. We're educating professionals about agriscaping. We're empowering them with the tools to be able to start and grow their own agriscaping business if they'd like. We send them business. We're actually building a whole network model nationwide all these leads are coming in from all over the country, even in the world. We have people asking for, hey, I need somebody in the UK that can do agriscaping. I was like, we don't have anybody in the UK. So we're building the education model so we can train people and then send them business, and we can certify them and then send them all this business that's being attracted to our model.
Wow.
And then the support systems, we're building online resources and tools, the training systems all online, as well as tools that they can plug in their address, and it will literally align with the nearest weather stations and give them calendars that are based on where they live, based on their zip code. And it's all based on some new microclimate technology that we developed for landscapes. Because, you look on the back of your seed packets, it's like, oh, if I had a seed packet here, it's like, here's some seeds. But the seed packets typically have that nice big full sun thing for all the edibles. And it's always full sun, but then you go into people's backyards that keep getting smaller, like mine was, and it's not the same. It's not the same time to plant when you got only partial sun. So how do they grow there? And so we regrew everything. I mean, that's what I've been doing since 2001, was just experimenting and tracking all my notes and where do things grow and where do seasons shift and all that stuff. And so we put that all into a database and now into a software program so that people have the easier information, I guess, access to that.
Yep. Okay, cool. So it sounds like, when you were talking there, it sounds like there's maybe 3 different, I guess, components to the agriscaping business. It sounds like you have, you guys actually go out and install landscaping and do jobs on your own. It sounds like you have an education component where you teach people to be able to kind of do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And then maybe the third there is where you actually teach people to go out and then empower them to be business people for themselves and do agriscaping for other clients.
Yeah, and that's the fastest growing facet of what we're doing right now is getting people in different parts of the country, to start agriscaping where they live, because we have more business than any of our crews can handle. And so we literally started shifting last year just into the education and training model because, I gave my contractors licenses to my, to some of the guys that were working for us. And I said, hey, you keep running this. We'll just keep sending you business. But we've got this model that's blowing up everywhere else, and we need to focus on training them and empowering them and be able to send business their way. And so that's what we're doing. We're literally just sending business out to everybody else. Gotcha.
So what's the process like to become a certified agriscaper with you guys?
Well, the first step, go to agriscaping.com. It says learn it, live it. I mean, if you want to live it and lead it, there's a lead it button on there, and that talks about getting certified. And so you apply. You actually have to apply to the different certifications we have. We have educator certification, so if you want to train where you're at, and if you want to become a designer, landscape architects are jumping into our program, learning about agriscaping, integrating it into commercial projects now and stuff, which is really cool. And then there's the installers, there's maintenance crews, there's a design tech, where you can literally just go out with no real experience at all and start doing consults in people's properties, teaching them how to do agriscaping, how to identify other microclimates and map out microclimates for people, giving them all the tools they need to grow their own stuff.
Nice. So, okay, so it sounds like it's a little bit involved, but definitely not unapproachable, and something, like you said, if you just go to agriscaping.com, you guys have some pretty good info there that'll walk you all the way through the process. Who are some of the organizations that have taken an interest in what you guys are doing thus far?
Well, some home builders have actually taken notice of what we're doing. So now agriscaping is now available here in the Phoenix area at a couple of home builders, like VIP Homes in particular. It's like you can go into their home thing and their home center. You can either pick a traditional landscape or an agriscape.
Wow.
And so they get to see that. And there's 2 options. They got a productive landscape, which is an agriscape, or that consumptive one, which is their traditional stuff.
Yeah. So do you, sorry.
Go ahead, keep going.
I was just going to say, is there, just curious, is there a cost difference when that home builder use case where somebody walks in, they're getting a home built, is it like $20,000 more expensive to get agriscaping put in, or is it less? I mean, how does it
can be
shake
the
down?
exact same. I mean, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I got a $10,000 budget, the first thing we'll tell them is like, well, great. Well, your agriscape's going to pay for itself and pay itself back off within about 4 years is our average. Whereas your traditional landscape doubles in cost in 4 years because of all the expense that typically goes into caring for a landscape.
Yeah.
And so we kind of show them apples to apples. One's going to eat you and one's going to feed you. And that's what ours does, is feed you, and it still looks good. So, so it can cost the exact same. No difference in cost, still look amazing. But like instead of a deer grass, we got a lemongrass. So it's going to have the same look I mean, you can still have your Japanese landscaping and all the other beautiful look, your French country and all that stuff. And we literally teach our designers different modalities, but just replacing an edible with a non-edible and integrating those things in with the microclimates and creating the landscape that's really easy to maintain.
I think that was what spoke to me when I first. I think I saw your guys' Kickstarter last year in 2015, and I saw that and I was just like, man, this is like. I try to preach this to my people because, like, if you're going to plant something that you have to water, you have to weed, you have to care for. I mean, in the city, people are chemically treating their grass, spending money on that, spending time on that, and then going out and like mowing it or hiring somebody to come mow. I mean, like, you're putting resources into that. Might as well get something out of it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you can do less harm at the same time and all these other things that you just mentioned, like, it's just a no-brainer to me. So, what's one thing that you could kind of recommend to people that might be watching this? Like, what's one thing that people can do to start agriscaping maybe on their own, in their own yards?
Well, I think first believe in yourself, believe that you can do it. That even a black thumb is a good part of the agriscaping process. Composting, you might have a gift for it. You know, and so, you know, that's the black thumb people are good at the first part, which is building soil. And that's great. And so don't be, you know, put off by that and realize that you can always get started somewhere. If there's something growing in your yard, if weeds grow in your yard, you can agriscape.
Yeah.
Because a lot of weeds are actually edible and really good for you too. And that's stuff we teach in our mastery program that's all for the do-it-yourselfers, people that want to learn how to do it. We got a number of videos and stuff online too on our website as well as our Facebook page. We're always throwing out free stuff for people so they can learn how to get started, do it easy. Very cool,
very cool. You mentioned the weeds. I did a permaculture design course last summer in Vermont with Ben Falk and the whole systems design team. And there were some interesting conversations that we had around like weeds and invasive species and really like, is it not just semantics? It's just a species that's well adapted to those conditions, you know, and the fact that maybe you don't happen to like it, does that make it a weed or does that make it something that is, you know, that you hadn't considered and yet is doing very well in your location? So it was kind of interesting, and permaculture looks at a handful of things. I'm sure you're familiar, but one of them is the problem is the solution. So what is there that's persistent and native to your area that could be useful, or what knowledge can you, you know, possibly like gain yourself to learn about the stuff that you don't know about? So, because maybe it's already useful and it's been sitting there this whole time, and yet, you know, you're frustrated by it because it doesn't look pretty or it doesn't, you know, whatever. But interesting idea, man. So what would you say, if you were going to sum it all up, what would you say the Agriscaping mission is?
Well, improve local food access and sustainability for everybody. I mean, improving local food economies 1 yard at a time. It can be elegant, it can be amazing, and it can be something that really drives a new economy that can shift in any climate. You know, whether you believe in climate change or not, it doesn't really matter. It's happening in our backyards is climate changing. You know, because they're getting smaller and smaller, and yet food's coming from further and further away. So, in short, agriscaping is all about an elegant approach to sustainability in a way that has never been done before, bringing modern technology and aligning it with old school techniques.
I love it, man. I like that you say old school techniques too, because again, going back to the permaculture thing, I think that it's 2016 now, and I think that as we get further and further along, every year, every month, every week, technology seems to increase, and sometimes it's like the complexity that gets introduced is not worth it. You know, you just bring on so many fail points. So I love going old school whenever you can. You know, adapting to the current situation, but keeping it at its principle and its core, you know, as much as possible. So, man, I've really loved it. I appreciate the time that you took with us today. I just wanted to ask you real quick in closing here, where can people find you? Do you want to mention like your site again and any social that you might have going or anything like that?
So you can go to agriscaping.com, and you can also find us on Facebook /Agriscaping. Find us on Twitter /Agriscaping. Pretty much just Google Agriscaping and you'll find us out there somewhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you again next time on The Daily Prep.